Hey, everybody, what's going on? This your man, Big B, Brian Hanley, and welcome to Steelers Almighty Scouting Report. Pittsburgh Steelers are at home Sunday night against the New York Jets. A lot going on with both of these football teams. The Jets made a coaching change, didn't help them last week. Then they bring in Davante Adams. Their receiving core just got a ton better. There were reports out there that the Steelers were after Davante Adams. I told you guys that was never going to happen, and it wasn't, and it didn't. But a lot going on. Steelers are making a change with Russell Wilson, although it hasn't officially been announced. I mean, both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are both acting like Russell Wilson's going to be the starter. Mike Tomlin basically told us that Russell Wilson was going to be the starter. So until we hear otherwise or we see otherwise, we're going to assume that he's going to be the starter. So it's a really big game for both. The Steelers are 4-2. This is an opportunity to go to 5-2 against a team that, in all intents and purposes, we'll get to the roster breakdown, but the Jets roster is better than the Steelers. Now, are they better coached? No, because heck, the Jets don't even have a real official head coach. They have an interim head coach. So we'll see, going into this game. But it's in Pittsburgh. It's on Sunday night. A lot riding because the Jets are trying to get on track. They are 2-4. They thought they were going to be better than what they currently are. So there's a lot riding. I don't think it's necessarily make or break for the Jets, but it very well might be because you change the head coach, you change a coordinator. We'll get into all of that and more. We got Matt O'Leary from Just Jets that's going to break down this Jets game with us later. So make sure you guys stick around for that. So let's get into this. But before we do, as always, remember to like, follow, subscribe, continue to hit that notification bell because, again, Steelers Almighty is the fastest growing Steelers channel on YouTube right now. That's all because of you guys, man. So we appreciate it. Let's start to break this thing down. First things first. Obviously, the Steelers are playing the Jets. The game is in Pittsburgh on Sunday night. Jets are the favorite, -2.5 for the Jets. So the Steelers were getting 2.5 points at home. And again, as we go through the roster breakdown, maybe that'll be a reason why, you know. But like I said, the game's at night, supposed to be in the mid 40s. Hopefully, now it doesn't call for any rain, but hopefully the weather doesn't change because the last time the Steelers, Lord have mercy, played in Pittsburgh, we had to wait over 2 hours to play the game, and it was a nightmare. Game ended at 1:30 in the morning, absolute nightmare. So let's hope that we don't have that. But the temperature is actually supposed to be perfect. Mid 40s, no clouds, supposed to be a great night for football. So we will see there. Getting to the personnel, look, I think we know what the Jets bring to the table. Aaron Rodgers is our quarterback. Didn't play last year or played 4 snaps last year. Has not played his best football this year, but that might be changing with Davante Adams. It might be changing. Brees Hall, really good running back, but their running game hasn't really been getting going because their offensive line is bad. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The Jets' offensive line is bad. Can't run it, can't really pass protect. And Brees Hall hadn't been able to do his thing like he has in years past. Hopefully, that doesn't change against the Steelers. Again, the last time that we were at home, the Steelers played the team that couldn't run the ball an inch, and they were able to run the football whenever they needed to do it. It was disgusting. So hopefully that doesn't happen. And then at the wide receiver position, look, you bring in Davante Adams, who miraculously his hamstring all of a sudden is healthy and he's able to go. You guys knew that his hamstring wasn't hurt, and I don't blame him. If I'm trying to get out and I've asked for a trade, my hamstring will be a little tight too. So I get that. You got Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard. They're going to give the Steelers problems. Beanie Bishop has been a problem all season long. This is going to be a challenge. So the Steelers are going to have to do something to be able to make this work. I'm guessing pass rush, but we'll get into that breakdown here a little bit later. As far as on the defensive side of the ball, look, the Jets defense, while I don't know, I still think it's really, really good. And the pass defense especially, run defense hasn't been quite as good. But Quentin Williams is still one of the best defensive tackles. In my opinion, a top 5 defensive tackle in this league. We know about Sauce Gardner, one of the top 3 cornerbacks in this league, in my opinion. Very, very good. And Jamian Sherwood. Look, CJ Mosley's been down. Maybe he's lost a step, but he's been injured. Jamian Sherwood looks like a linebacker. A lot of it, maybe it looks better with him versus, CJ Mosley. I don't know. I know that he's leading them in tackles this year, doing a really good job at the linebacker spot. They brought in some free agents, Tyron Smith. Again, not necessarily working out. The offensive line, Tyron Smith had a horrible game last week. And he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There is no doubt about it. But if you were a second team All Pro last year and the Cowboys got rid of him, and the Cowboys have had him for years, maybe there was something to that. I don't know. Obviously, the Cowboys didn't want to pay him big money, and that's why he left. He takes a 1-year deal with the Jets, and he has not looked good this year. Javon Kinlaw, he has looked good for the Jets. Again, the Jets defense is good. I know it hasn't been great against or as good is against the run as it has in the past, but their defense is really good. That one other, Mike Williams, you brought him in. Yeah, that hasn't worked out at all. That literally has not worked out at all. And even Aaron Rodgers is calling him out, running the wrong routes, which I don't agree with. He ran the wrong route if that's what happened, but you do that behind closed doors. You don't have to justify that to the media. Just, hey, man, we had miscommunication. And, that's all he had to say. Just leave it at that. But that's not what happened. But we know that's not what Aaron Rodgers does. So, injuries. Look, Zach Frazier being out for the Steelers, that hurts. I don't know any other way to say it. He's been our best offensive lineman this year. Hasn't really been that close, and he's out. We're going to see what Ryan McCallum's got, but I don't know. Again, going against this Jets defense, it could be a problem, man. How many injuries are we going to have on our offensive line? It's just absolutely sickening. Nick Herbig's still out. So we'll see. We'll see. We are getting back Alex Highsmith, though. Now, that's the positive note, especially against that porous offensive line that the Jets have. Now, I have TJ Watt on one side and Alex Highsmith on another. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. Jermaine Johnson for the Jets. Achilles goes on the IR. That was something that, I shouldn't say expected to happen, but because you never want anybody to get hurt. But once he got hurt, I think they pretty much knew that was what was going to happen with him. So we'll go from there. Now let's look at some of these matchups, man. So strength versus strength, meaning the Steelers' strength facing the Jets' strength and what they'll be going headbutting up against each other. What I had down was the Steelers' defense, or pass defense, should I say, which is 13th in the league, against the Jets' pass offense. Now, I know what you're going to say is that the Jets' pass offense, their pass protection has been terrible. Okay, I get that. But if they get time, especially adding in Davante Adams, I would say that their pass offense just takes it up a notch. They just got better. Now, again, if you can't protect somebody, that's a totally different thing. It's not going to matter who you have out there at wide receiver. You could have Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, and Randy Moss as your three receivers. If you can't protect, it doesn't matter. But that's where I'm going strength versus strength. The Steelers pass defense against the Jets pass offense. Now, as far as the Steelers are concerned, when you talk about strength versus weakness, this one's a no-brainer. Steelers run defense, which is 4th in the league. The Jets rushing offense is 30th in the league. And as I mentioned previously, the last 3 weeks, the Steelers have faced Dallas, the Raiders, and now the Jets. All 3 teams are at the bottom of the league in rushing. Now, the last time we were at home, Dallas was able to run the football when they wanted to run the football, which was disgusting because they haven't been able to run it against anybody all year. And then after they play the Steelers, the very next game, I think they had like 15 total rushing yards. They just can't run the football. The Steelers can't let that happen in this game. The Jets are going to try to run it. They will. And the Steelers have to be there to say, no, you're not running this football. But if you let them run it and you give them the confidence to run it, that's just going to open so many more things up on the back end. We're already going to have our hands full dealing with the back end. Got to shut the run game off. And I am going to put a lot of this emphasis on Patrick Queen Elandon Roberts, and Peyton Wilson. You guys got to show up. Can't be overrunning plays. Can't be trying to run around blocks. Go make tackles in the run game at the line of scrimmage. The Jets aren't going to be able to block you. It's not Brees Hall. Brees Hall is fine. It's their offensive line is not any good. They're not. Well, go stop them. That's all I'm going to say. Go stop them. As far as the Steelers' weakness against a Jets' strength, again, a no-brainer. The Steelers, their pass offense, 28th in the league. The Jets' pass defense is second. It's just that simple. A lot of people talk about Sauce Gardner, and for good reason. DJ Reed is also outstanding. They get after you in the passing game. That's where they're just outstanding against the pass. The Jets are just good. The Steelers are not. They haven't been. A lot of people talking about the Justin Fields and maybe he's out there, maybe he's not. Look, there's one thing that we know for a fact. The Steelers passing offense is 28th in the league. I get it. It's not all Justin Fields' fault, man. It's just not. You got to have better play calling. You got to have better protection. You got to have receivers get open. And then when they do get open, you got to have them catch the ball. All of those things are factors in this. But don't tell me that Justin Fields hasn't been a problem either, because he has. He just has. And he said so. Now, he might be towing the company line and saying what he needs to say because he's a good person and he's a good team guy. But we watched the games. He hadn't been good. Or let me say this. He hasn't been great. He's been okay. The last two games in the passing game, he's been okay. And that's fine. But again, we're 28th in the league. And it isn't everybody else's fault. That's all I'm saying. They're making a change to Russell Wilson because they want to have more in the passing game. Are you going to give up something in the running game? Yes. Are you going to give up something in getting out of where the line breaks down and Justin Fields is able to create? Are you going to give up some of that? Absolutely. But is that going to outweigh what you gain in getting the ball out, ball placement, getting the ball down the field, which you'll get better with Russell Wilson? Which one is going to outweigh the two? It's a good test for that because, again, the Jets are a good defense, and they're especially good against the pass. So we're going to learn a lot about where we are now. Again, the pass protection is a problem because we know what Broderick Jones' issues have been. We got a backup center that's in there, and we we have a backup right guard. So we're going to find out a lot here, man. It could be problems. It could be problems. Again, let's go to the breakdown here. The game is in Pittsburgh. I mean, we've covered that. As far as coaching is concerned, you can hate Mike Tomlin all you want, but even the biggest Mike Tomlin haters say that Mike Tomlin is a better coach than an interim coach. Okay? Just period, end of story. The coaching goes to Pittsburgh and goes to Mike Tomlin. The history, look, the Steelers have won. They lead the series 20-7 in this matchup. However, the Jets have won the last two, including last year. I think we all remember that debacle last year when the Jets came back and won in Pittsburgh 24-20. It's just, gee, many Christmas. I don't even want to remind anybody of that we let Zach Wilson look like Joe Montana in that football game. It was disgusting. It was just disgusting. As far as the rosters are concerned, I don't think it's up for debate. I think the Jets have a better roster, man. They do. They have a better roster. But that doesn't necessarily mean they have all the better matchups, which I'm coming to next. I think the matchups are even because as much advantage as maybe the Jets have with their defense versus our offense, we've got some advantages too, because their offensive line, you're going to tell me they're going to block Watt and Highsmith? And I think we can do a better job matching up in our secondary than what people are going to give us credit for. I think the matchups are even. It's going to be difficult. Like I said, their roster is overall better than the Steelers, but the coaching, I don't know that it is. Matter of fact, I know that it isn't, but we'll see. We'll see. Going to be a good matchup. The outcome, look, I think it's going to be a slugfest. I really do. I don't think either offense is going to be able to do a ton because the defenses are really good. But I do like Pittsburgh. I like them late. I like them 17-16. I like Boz with a late field goal. to go win the game, maybe 53 yards. Who knows? You know how Boz is. You know, I do like the Steelers to win this football game at home. It's going to be tough, very, very physical football game. Um, but I just believe that the Steelers are going to have enough to be able to win it. I think they're going to be able to stop Aaron Rodgers. They'll get after Aaron Rodgers enough. Aaron Rodgers has not played good this year. His offensive line has been horrible this year. I think the Steelers exploit that, maybe cause a turnover or two. And if they do, they can take advantage of it and win the game. Again, the Jets defense is good, man. It is. So the litmus test that everybody's looking for, well, the offense better look a whole lot better with Russell Wilson. It may not look better this week. It just may not look better because of how good the defense is. But too bad, so sad. Such is life. And it's what Mike Tomlin always says, such is life in the NFL. Doesn't matter to me. I just want to win. And good or bad, I need a victory. Don't be putting the ball in harm's way, because if you do that, that's the problem. Look, everybody got on to me because I said that Mike Tomlin was going to make this decision with the quarterback, and everybody got mad at me for it. I'm sorry, but I've been around Mike Tomlin, just like you guys have. You knew what he was going to do. We may not have wanted him to do it, but we knew what he was going to do. So I'm looking forward to this matchup, man. Should be a real good one. Right now, we have got Matt O'Leary. He is with Just Jets. He has come in and graced us with his time to be able to come in and talk to us about this matchup. So we're going to bring in Matt right now. All right, everybody. We got our man Matt O'Leary here from Just Jets, who came to join us on this Scouting Report podcast. We appreciate him giving us his time. Matt, thank you for joining us, man. How are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to break it down. Should be a big matchup on Sunday Night Football between the Jets and the Steelers.
Absolutely. First thing, hopefully we don't get a 2-hour rain delay like the Steelers had the last time. That was an absolute nightmare, just dozing in and out of sleep. So hopefully we don't have that. But let's dive into this. First things first on the Jets, man. You know, just kind of give us the pulse. A lot has happened basically in the last couple of weeks, as we talked about before we started taping here. Just kind of tell us exactly what the pulse is right now of the Jets.
Yeah, so it's really, in a way, hard to explain because there is obvious disappointment with the record being 2-4, high expectations going into this year, lost three straight, haven't looked very good, and very much so feels like season on the line this week against Pittsburgh. So there's obviously some nerves and uneasiness with the fan base, but also at the same time, new head coach, Robert Saleh out, Jeff Ulbrich comes in. They trade for Davante Adams. Todd Downing takes over as the play caller. And, not all three of those things are going to fix every single issue with the New York Jets, but there were positive signs in that Buffalo Bills game, and the offense showed a lot more life this past week. So fans are still excited, but at the same time, there's also a level of disappointment too when, Aaron Rodgers coming back, the expectation was this was going to be a good football team. And, frankly, through the first 6 weeks of the year, that hasn't been the case.
The thing for me, just from the outside looking in, that's standing out, and I'm sure Jets fans can attest to this, is that the offensive line just hasn't been very good. Look, I don't want to say this because maybe it sounds like I'm bad mouthing, but Tyron Smith just doesn't look like the same guy. And this is a guy that was a second team All Pro, not one of those handed out Pro Bowls that guys tend to get from time to time. He was a second team All Pro last year and played well. He's not playing well, and the offensive line in general isn't playing well. I think that kind of has something to do with what is happening with the offense.
Yeah, it's definitely a major factor. And you brought it up. I mean, through the first 3 weeks of the year, the Jets' offensive line was pretty good in pass protection, but they really struggled against in the run game.
Right.
Now, the last 3 weeks, the run blocking hasn't really gotten all that much better, although they had probably their best game against Buffalo in the rushing attack. But the pass pro has just gone completely out the window. Tyron Smith, he's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer one day, but I don't know what is happening with him. He just does not look like the same guy that he was in Dallas. And I know, obviously injuries have played a major factor in his career, and he is 33 years old, but this is not the type of play that they were expecting to get. And I almost wonder in a way, like how much longer is the leash? You drafted Olu Fashanu in the first round, 11th overall, and he's more than likely your left tackle of the future. I wonder if they would consider playing him at some point. Obviously, this week would be a massive, massive test going up
Right.
against the defensive line and TJ Watt, who has wrecked many a games in the past. So I don't think they're pulling the plug this week, but I wonder if this play continues if they do consider that at some point.
Gotcha. Looking at some of the things as far as free agents, we talk about Mike Williams, and it doesn't look like the Mike Williams bringing him in that's worked at all. But the one thing that I will say, Matt, is one of my things that I say all the time is that it's one thing to make a mistake, it's another thing to live in the mistake. And the Jets, they're like, nope, we made a mistake. We're getting out of this right now. And they bring in Davante Adams. Is that kind of the feeling that they had going on? Obviously, adding a Davante Adams at any time is going to help your football team. But with that kind of the feeling like, hold on a second, this isn't working. We got to change something right now if we're going to try to be the team that we want to be.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I think, the Davante Adams trade was going to happen eventually. That was one of the worst kept secrets in the NFL that the
Okay.
Jets were interested in him for over a year at this point. But it's the game or the last 2 weeks really with Mike Williams in particular has been rough. But, on the pretty much the essential final play for the Jets, on the interception, Rodgers explains, that he ran the wrong route and then he fell down coming back to the ball and it's picked off and the game ends that way. So I think they were just a little bit frustrated with him, and he hasn't looked the same coming off the ACL from last year. So instead of doubling down on that and just hoping that eventually it would turn out okay, they were proactive and went out and got Davante, who, yeah, he's not in his prime anymore, but he's still a really good elite route runner, and he has that connection with Aaron Rodgers, which is something that it seems like Mike Williams doesn't have yet or hasn't been able to develop. So I'm totally good with the move. It stinks about Mike Williams and having to probably cut bait there, but if you're bringing in Devontae and you have to sacrifice Mike Williams to do it, I think it's totally worth it.
Right. And like I said, it's professional sports, man. It's competitive. It is what it is. So I totally understand that. Let's flip over to the defense. Look, outside of last game, which I don't think was a horrible game by the Jets defense. I mean, Jets fans might think so, but I don't think it was horrible. Jets defense has been pretty good this year. I'm not going to say that they were as good as last year or maybe previous years, but I still believe the Jets defense is really, really good. I mean, they're number 2 in the league right now as far as yards per game. So I think that Jets defense is outstanding.
Yeah, there's definitely it's still the pieces are still there for this team to be an elite level defense. I will say it feels like they've taken a little bit of a step back from where they were the last 2 years. And my reasoning on that is I think their run defense has been very poor
Right.
so far this year. They got gashed in week one, and then this past game against Buffalo, they really struggled in the first half. Now, to their credit, they buckled down in the second half and they only allowed 3 points. And you look at it, you allow 23 points. Like that's not a horrific outing, but the 4 weeks before that, they were allowing 17 points or less defensively. So I think this is a very good defense. They're also struggling getting any sort of pass rush outside of Will McDonald.
Right.
Obviously, you lose Jermaine Johnson for the season in week two. Hassan Reddick still hasn't shown up yet, and that's a whole nother story for maybe another day here. But yeah, like there are some little flaws with this defense. And to me, it's the defensive line not getting the pressure that they've been able to in years gone by. And also, it feels like they have taken a step back as a run defense. But I would still say absolutely a top half of the league defense for sure.
Yeah. Because one of the things, as you kind of break this game down, Quentin Williams, I think is still one of the best. I mean, he's only 26 years old. I didn't realize that. For some reason, I thought he pushing 30. He is not, and still one of the best defensive tackles in the league. But it is surprising as far as the run defense is concerned. Is some of that maybe C.J. Mosley? Now he is 32, been a little injured. Is that part of the problem? Maybe they're just not. Is it the linebackers? Is it just the defensive line as far as the run defense?
Yeah, I think that does play a factor. Mosley being hurt this year hasn't helped. Now,
Right.
Quincy Williams at linebacker has really come along the last 2 years. But for Mosley, it looks like he's lost a step and he's not very good in coverage anymore. But I think he's still valuable with the football IQ that he brings, and he really is a leader on that defense. And in the run game, he could still perform, which I think they are missing that a little bit. And on the defensive line, like I think their issues in their run game is that they over pursue and leave their gaps, and that ends up creating big plays. We saw that at the end of the game on third down. Michael Clemens, the edge rusher, really bit inside on a fake instead of setting the edge, and then Josh Allen's able to run for the first down. Like just kind of like little things like that that kind of just build up over time and create big plays.
Gotcha. So digging into this game a little bit, it's Sunday night game. The Jets, and you mentioned it, talking about, it's kind of a make or break game for them. I kind of see it that way a little bit as far as the Jets side. Now, granted, there's still a ton of football left to be played, and we have seen teams just catch fire the second half of the season. But it's New York, and with everything going on within the locker room and everything that has happened, it's almost like if you lose this one, because I think a lot of people would say that the Jets are better than the Steelers. Just if you look at it from man to man, that the Jets have a better team than the Steelers. But if you don't win this one, what happens with the Jets?
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't know where you go from here because you changed the head coach, you brought in Davante Adams, you changed the play caller, and if you're still not able to win, well, like then what do you do? And you're really spinning at that point. Like a 3-4 record obviously isn't great, and that's not where you want to be through 7 games. But they have the Steelers and then they have the New England Patriots. So if they could find a way to get back to 500 and 4-4, optics wise, it kind of just feels like if you could stay afloat and stay in the mix in the AFC, there's a lot of teams kind of stuck in the middle. It feels like in this conference, there's maybe 2 or 3 teams towards the top, and then there's a very mushy middle.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the goal is to kind of just hang around and eventually make that run down the stretch, like you mentioned. I also thought it was interesting you brought up that on paper this Jets team looks better, and I would agree roster wise. I just think flat out the Jets have the better roster, but I think the Steelers are significantly better coached and they don't make the mistakes that the Jets do. The Jets are constantly shooting themselves in their own foot, self-inflicted wounds. They're not very well coached at times, and it feels like the Steelers are the opposite of the Jets. They win ugly sometimes, but they are finding ways to win games every single week because I do think they are well coached. Where the Jets are making mistakes and finding ways to lose these one-score games. So I think that coaching absolutely matters a ton in this game.
Yeah, well, I mean, people underestimate coaching all the time in the NFL. And I'm like, look, of the major sports in the NFL, in football, coaching matters. It absolutely does. Breaking down this matchup or getting into it a little bit, what are some of the keys for the Jets to try to win this football game in Pittsburgh on Sunday night?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that jumps out to me is TJ Watt and that Steelers defense. And we mentioned Tyron Smith and his struggles early on. I think they need to put a tight end on that side of the field to help out Tyron Smith because like he's someone who could single-handedly wreck a game, and I just don't want to go down without trying to put a second guy on him. And he can get through double teams too, obviously, but my plan on offense would be just don't let that guy beat me. And if it has to be a double team, that's what it is.
Right.
And on the defensive side of the ball, for me on the Jet side, really interesting, really interested to see how the quarterback situation plays out. I know, Russell Wilson has taken first team snaps this week. I
Right.
guess it's trending towards Russell Wilson starting in this game. So it's going to really depend on which quarterback the Jets are facing. Again, I mentioned the Jets run issues stopping the run. I would actually be a little bit more nervous about the Steelers offense with Fields than Russell Wilson, I think, at this point. The Jets played the Broncos last year. And I know roster obviously different, but they did a good job against Russell Wilson, and he's not really a rushing quarterback at this point in his career. So if he gets the start, I think that might actually play into the Jets' favor here a little bit.
Right. I mean, in all intents and purposes, I mean, everything is trending toward Russell Wilson being the starter. The Steelers are down a couple offensive linemen, but they do get back Alex Highsmith, which I mean, it kind of makes problems because TJ Watt plays on the opposite side. He plays on the right side. So if you put a tight end over there, look, Alex Highsmith is really good. He's not TJ Watt. I'm not saying that, but he's really good. It's almost like, okay, well, what personnel do you run if you want to help Tyron Smith? Okay, that's fine. But then you got TJ Watt on the other side. So you're going to run a lot of 22 personnel or 12 personnel, something of that nature to help out. Well, it'd be interested to see the cat and mouse there. Um, Having said all of that, man, and I put everybody, I guess, technically put you on the spot, is who wins the game on Saturday and why, or Sunday and why?
So I do think the Jets win this game, but I think it's a low scoring, kind of ugly game, like 17-13, 17-16, somewhere in that range. And I just think this Jets team is absolutely desperate. As we said at the beginning, like they cannot afford to lose this game. But at the same time, while I say that, I think there absolutely is a path to the Steelers winning. And I would not be surprised on Sunday night if it came down to it and the Steelers win, a low scoring, grinded out game, because that's just what they do. They find ways to win every single week. But I think with just how desperate this team is, and I really do think that Davante Adams addition is going to help in this game. He's expected to play, and he already has that built-in connection with Aaron Rodgers. Like this isn't going to be something that takes 3 weeks to get him up to speed and on the same page with the quarterback. And I got to give a lot of credit to Todd Downing and his play calling last week. I thought he was a massive upgrade over Nathaniel Hackett. So it's a really big test for him. And I think they are able to do enough offensively to survive this one. But I expect it to be tight right down to the wire in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that's what I think so too. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. It's going to be a good football game, which sometimes people think the messy games aren't good football games. Sometimes I actually think this is going to be a good football game. So I'm excited to see it. Well, Matt, I want to thank you, number one, for giving us your time. I know you're a busy guy. Let everybody know where they can find your stuff, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on YouTube and social media at Matt O'Leary NY, putting out daily Jets videos and covering the NFL. I like to keep it fun. So make sure to follow along if you want your updates on the New York Jets.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, we appreciate your time and everything that you're doing. Make sure if you guys are not following this guy, make sure you absolutely go check him out. He has great stuff every day. So we appreciate it, Matt. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Man, we want to thank Matt O'Leary again with Just Jets. We thank him for giving us his time, man. We really appreciate it, Matt. Thank you. Any Jets fans, if your algorithm has brought you here, make sure you go follow him. Obviously, follow Steelers Almighty as well, because we put out some good content, I think, as well. But make sure you go follow Matt O'Leary at Just Jets, man. He's been doing this for a while, does very, very good stuff, man. So make sure you follow him. So basically, to wrap this thing up, I I like the Steelers in this matchup. Like I said, it's going to be a slugfest. I know a lot of people are questioning Mike Tomlin in making this decision of bringing in Russell Wilson to be the starter. I'm not sure that I'm not questioning it either. I mean, you got a quarterback that's 4-2, but is he really a hot quarterback? Has he set the world on fire? I think the answer to that is no. And let me just ask you this. At the beginning of the season, Russell Wilson was going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers starter before he got hurt. That was going to happen. If Justin Fields hasn't played so well, and he even said it, he hasn't played well enough to just make this a non conversation. If he had, I don't think Mike Tomlin makes the move. He said so. Hey, we're 4-2. We've won some games, but nothing that you would call great. Well, a 28th in the league passing, ranking will tell you that nobody's playing great. Now, again, I've said this before. You can't blame the entire passing offense on Justin Fields. You're a fool if you do, because that's not the truth. You can't blame the play calling. You can't blame the blocking. You can't blame receivers not getting open and then when they do, dropping the ball. You can't blame those things on Justin Fields. It's not his fault. But you can blame Justin Fields for not seeing the field, holding the ball a little bit too long, not getting through his progressions. Those are all things that have actually happened, whether some of us want to believe it or not. Those things have happened, and the offense has suffered. So at least 50% of this is Justin Fields' fault. At least that. Some people are going to say more. I'll give it 50%. But if it's 50%, then we got to see what we got in Russell Wilson, man. We just do. I know that's not what some people are going to want to hear. Some people are going to accuse me and have accused me. Oh, you're just a Russell Wilson fan. You're a Fields hater. I don't know how many different times I've had to say it. The very first podcast that I had, April 4th of 2024, I said I wanted Justin Fields to win the job because I thought he was the future. I've never backed off of that, and I'm never going to back off of that. But here's the thing, people. He didn't win the job. That's the whole thing. He didn't win it. And then when he got the job, he didn't play well enough to keep it. Because I can tell you this right now. If Russell Wilson played exactly how Justin Fields played, exactly how, and Justin Fields was on the bench, would you guys be screaming for Fields to play? You're absolutely right, you would. So stop it. Stop, stop, stop. It's okay to see what we have in Russell Wilson. It's okay to do that. And like I mentioned, it may not look good this week because the Jets are really good. Is that all you give him? Do you give him just 1 week? Or do you at least give him to the bye to see what he's got? Now, I will say this. If it looks awful, you got to get him out. You got to get him out. Because even with Justin Fields, if we're going to look this way, we were at least winning game. And the schedule's about to get a hell of a lot tougher. And throw in that Washington game where we all thought, they're not going to be very good. Turns out, yeah, they're pretty good. So we got a couple of weeks here to try to figure this out, man. We'll see. But this is a big game to me. I think it's one of the bigger games of the season so far because if the Steelers can get the 5-2. Look, there's a lot of teams that are kind of muddled up here, and we know what our back end of the schedule is. It's not as hard because we got Cleveland back there, and we thought, including myself, that Cleveland was going to be a pretty good team. Well, it turns out they're not. However, the rest of those games are pretty damn difficult, man. So we'll find out a little bit more, or should I say a lot more this weekend on what this offense can be. We're going to find out. I'm excited to see it. Will it go well? I don't know, but I still believe the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning this game. Like I mentioned, late 17-16. Boz hits one. We win the game. Make it a walk-off for Boz. A walk-off from Boz, and we go home. I'll take it. Anything. I just want to win. I'll take it. Remember, pregame, 1 hour before the game, we'll be live right here talking to you guys. And then 15 minutes after the game, we're going to be right back live, taking all your all's questions and talking about exactly what it is that we see, man. So I hope to see everybody there. Make sure you are there. Continue to like, follow, subscribe, and continue to hit those comments and hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Steelers Almighty content comes out. I appreciate you guys. Aloha.